Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about some interviews I've seen recently where the globalist scripted and coordinated talking point is that mass illegal migration, the illegal aliens, the talking points go, have no choice. They're forced to do it. No choice. No. Desperate people fleeing Hitler, and they've got no choice. They're forced to do it. An evil fascist Nazi white countries just are making it hard for them. And this is an unspeakable outrage and so on. They're forced to do it. And the argument they put forward is, spurious as it is there's no safe pathways. If they had a safe pathway, they'd take it. If only they had a safe pathway, the fact they have means they're forced to do. The desperate people, little girls, little baby girls dressed in pink, forced to make this dangerous journey. Who's making them do this? Fucking Nazis. So this is the the lunacy. And I was watching an interview. It was only one for a few minutes. So I was watching an interview in a what you'd say would be a centre-right, one of the very few sort of centrist type news outlets. And this activist was spewing this utter nonsense about how they're forced to do it. Got no choice. They're forced to do it. The evil white people and so on, and got almost no pushback. So we're talking about people coming from like fucking Bangladesh or something. There's no civil war or anything like that. And they just want to freeload their way into a rich, white society, scream racism all the way. But they're desperate to come to a rich white society, and and they want to freeload their way and illegally come by paying smugglers or using the very huge, NGO, globalist funded NGO infrastructure to facilitate all the logistics of getting them to the rich white West and so on. So they want to do all this, but the argument is that they're totally justified in doing that. And if there was a proper pathway for them to do it, they would choose that pathway. But because there is no pathway, then they have to do it. So that the interviewer or the moderator, because there's a few people talking, the moderator, oh, well, can't they just go to the nearest country? No, they don't have to. And the activists just kept on talking utter nonsense, got hardly any pushback at all. Nothing of what they said was, and when it came to the time when someone on the panel who was prepared to talk against it and shoot this argument down in flames, when it came to them, oh, we've run out of time, oh, well, and then the whole thing was wrapped up. So it ended really with just the assertions of the activist. And so, okay, let's go through this then. The first thing is there are no safe pathways for these people to use, is the claim. Well, that's an utter and total lie. They can apply like anyone else. They can go to the embassy and they can apply to become a migrant and to come to the West. So that's a safe pathway. It's available and open to everybody. But when you actually go through the activist argument, they say, well, no, that's not really a safe and sure. Then they switch it, not just say, no, it's a sure pathway. It has to be safe and sure. Now they've added another dimension to the argument. Again, which interviewers and people don't seem to push back on or don't say, hey, hold on, you've just changed it. What's this safe and sure business? They've got safe pathways. They have safe pathways. So you're telling a lie, Mr. Dickhead activist. You're telling a fucking lie. They've got a safe pathway. They're choosing not to take a safe pathway. But as you start to unwind the activist argument, they say, well, no, it's not really safe because this person is an illiterate peasant, qualified at nothing. They can't even read and write in their own language, let alone English or whatever the Western language is, French or something. So they've got no hope of becoming a migrant, an immigrant to the West because they've got no language skills. They've got no skills of anything. They're just a fucking rural peasant, an illiterate rural peasant with an IQ of 80. They've got no hope of becoming a migrant. So really, they don't have a safe and sure way of doing it. So, well, hold on, we've now got sure. So these people, whenever they decide they just want to come to the West, they should be able to do so regardless, and they have to be sure, 100% sure, guaranteed they can come to the West. And that's really the next stage of their argument, that they must be guaranteed, they must be given absolute surety once they make the decision, whether it's a result of being UN and NGO agitators stirring them up to go to the West or whatever. They must be guaranteed 100% surety that they can do it. And if anything less than 100% guarantee means, according to these activists, they're entitled to bypass the system and go illegal. And because of that, they are then wholly justified in doing this. So, okay, then, but if they're not qualified in anything, why should they? Well, they want a better life. So they then use the argument of they have a connection to the country that they want to go to. Now, that's a pretty vague one. What the fuck does that even mean? They have a connection. Now, I would sort of like, just top of my head, connection. Well, that means that they've already got a job promised here, or their parents live here, or their family lives here, or lives in the Western country, and that would sort of, okay, well, maybe that's the connection, is it? I don't know. But they can take the wider, somebody from their tribal village has moved to Britain, for example, and that's it. That's a connection. That can be a connection, and that's all that's needed. That then wholly 100% justifies their desire to move to, and that they should be guaranteed that they can move to there because someone from their village is there. I mean, what? Now, they can also take the wider family, like if your second or third or fourth cousin has moved there, that's good enough that's a connection. That's called a connection. Now, if it's a direct blood relative, like your mother or your father or something, that type of thing, then that would be, but not part of, I wouldn't see part of a chain migration thing, as in the family reunion, as they call it in Australia, so that one person from a family of 25 people gets citizenship or residency in the West, and they can bring out the other 25 members of the fucking family based on the reunion. That's the scam that's pulled, and I dismiss that out of hand. But I find that these activists can sort of spread this nonsense around and really get no pushback, not even the questions about it. So the next stage, they then say, well, if the West wants to stop the illegal migration, all they have to do is guarantee to anybody who wants to come that you can have immediate citizenship as soon as you put your hand up and say, I want to be a citizen of Britain or France or Germany or something, Australia, and then you just give it to them. And then there won't be any illegality. Problem solved. Gee whiz. So here's a way to stop theft. Is to shut every shop down. So there are no shops at all anywhere in the world, and so therefore people can't steal from shops because there are no shops. Problem solved. Gee whiz. That reminds me of the South Park episodes. Also, how do we stop the rich and poor classes of people around the world? And so the 8-year-old kid says, I know, well, why don't we just kill off all the poor people? Then only be rich people left. Or why don't we kill off all the rich people? Then there won't be anyone that isn't poor. And it's got that childlike sort of bureaucratic ideological logic behind it. But these are the things that they're saying. So mass illegal migration is only because people cannot be guaranteed immediate citizenship upon demand of the West. And because of that, they can't be guaranteed immediate citizenship on demand, that they find other ways of coming to the West, and they are entitled to do so. And if you question that or you're against it, then you're fucking Hitler. And that's the sort of the scam. It's rather annoying sort of seeing a very clean-cut young man wearing his designer clothes, living in one of the wealthiest suburbs in Britain, pontificating about how all these illiterate peasants from the third world have every right to come here on demand just because they put their hand up and say, I want to. Now, let's look at the different in attitudes. When these migrant and refugee, or the refugee rather, type conventions were set up, this is in the aftermath of World War II, where there were millions of displaced people in camps. And I know some of these people, by the way, or knew some of them. mostly dead now. But these camps that were in Europe, they could be, because of the war, they were displaced people of all different nationalities. It could be Russian or I don't know, Polish or whatever. And there are millions of them in these camps. But even though there were gazillions of people in the camps, hardly any of them ended up. They didn't all sort of go to England or go to France or go to so and so. So there were not mass movements of people into these Western countries. Britain was on a relative basis at least quite untouched by the war. It was badly beaten up by the war, but compared to say Germany or France at the time, it was relatively untouched. But they took in really very small numbers of refugees at the time, even though there were millions of white, skilled Christians, many of whom had passable English, that were available to come to Britain, but they didn't take them. I don't know how many actually wanted to go, to how many were taken, but there were some, say, the Polish people that served in the military and that sort of thing, who decided to stay in Britain after Russia or the Soviets invaded Poland and so on. There were some of them. I don't know how many, but there were far less than there are Polish people coming into Britain today from Poland, free, not as refugees, but as, say, workers and so on, people seeking dual citizenship, all that sort of stuff. So, which is a good hedge, because if you're a Polish citizen, then you run the risk you're going to be maybe invaded by another country. So why don't I have dual citizenship so I can go to England anytime I want to? That type of stuff. So when you look at the or via the EU, given the supposed open borders, but very few people actually went. Now there were quite a few people went to, say, out of these refugee camps in Europe following World War II. Quite a few people went to, say, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. But the numbers actually compared to today are very small. Even though there are millions of refugees in these camps, the numbers moving are very small. So what we're seeing today isn't refugees. We're seeing the movement of third world illiterate peasants to the first world. And just to give you an idea, the people from just the subcontinent alone are going to England, are going to Britain, just in the subcontinent. Out of all the migrants, illegal and otherwise, going to Britain, as you take the total there, and this is adding like Pakistan, Bangladesh, India. If you look at those totals, just shy of 60% of all the people moving there are from the Indian subcontinent, moving to England. So the numbers are huge. Now, if you look at the number of people that have been born overseas, born internationally in Britain, you're looking at something in the order of, depending on whose numbers you look at, by the way, you're looking at something in the order of between 4 and 5 million are just from the subcontinent alone. The numbers are absolutely staggering. Now, when you look at, there's nearly 2 billion people, 2 billion with a B, people on the subcontinent alone, just on the Indian subcontinent, and 1.25 billion, 1.3 billion of those people all want to move to a rich white Western country, then you can sort of start to understand the magnitude of the problem. Now, the other thing that these activists do is they talk about the numbers in the refugee camps. So they switch between the economic migrants. So they keep jumping around with their positioning and their arguments, which again, they get so little pushback on, even by quite again, centrist or centre-right type interviewers. They just don't seem to chase down the issues here. I find it staggering. You could tear these people to pieces, but they don't. They just seem to let these things go through to the keeper. And I just don't understand why. You would never get away with that in a left-wing station. If you went, say, going against immigration, they'd be all over you and making all sorts of absurd accusations, accusing you of being a Nazi and so on. But these activists, these pro-mass immigration activists, they can pretty much say whatever they want, and without the slightest bit of pushback or anyone pulling them up on the obvious, ridiculous, and erroneous facts that they employ to push their propaganda. So the next argument is that they say, well, there's 100, for example, there's 150 million people in refugee camps around the world. Now they're all very different. A lot of those are in Africa. Droughts, famines, constant civil war, constant dramas. Isn't the solution there to fix the problems in Africa rather than to just say, look at all these supposed refugees? Now, a lot of these refugees, by the way, are even freeloaders. There, you're living in a village, like a rural village, living a subsistence lifestyle, and you run a risk where the tribe from down the road may come along and steal your food, or beat you up or something, or poison your well just to try and shit you or something. And United Nations agitator comes around and says, well, don't worry about that. You can go to that camp down the road. They'll give you free food, free medical, free dental. We'll give you, we'll give you air-conditioned buildings. You'll have a nice shiny car, and we'll drive you around in that. And if you've got a kid that needs medical help, and you get all that, so everything there is laid on for free. Doesn't cost you. All you got to do is go. We'll even drive you over there as well. So this is a huge thing. There's a lot of these camps around Africa. Now they're supposed to be located only near real fault lines, like civil war situations, but they're far more widespread now, and they are shocked through with agitators and activists, whispering in these people's ears. The reason you're poor is because white people stole everything. You go over that white country and you get back what's rightfully yours, and so on. The most terrible lies. And these very simple, low IQ peasants fall for all this shit. We'll even help you get there. We will provide everything you need to get to this country, get to these countries, and you can arrive as a legal immigrant. Don't worry, we've got lawyers that'll make sure you'll never get deported, and so on. And so you'll get a free house, you'll get free everything for free, everything. Towers of gold will be given to you. And of course, these simple people go and fall for all this shit, and off they go. And the opportunities now that everyone's got a television and can see what's happening around the world. Look at the soap operas from all the Western countries. They can see these, very silly, stupid people with all sorts of problems living these what appear to be extravagant lifestyles. And they go, oh shit, I want a piece of that. And so off they go. Now they say, well, look, 150, for example, I don't think it's quite 150, between 100 and 150 million people are in the refugee camp. They all are entitled to come to the West. They are. And these activists just assert this, that they are entitled. Now, a couple of things they do suggest, which is every sort of major transit route for people smugglers, whether it be from the Indian subcontinent or anywhere else, they say there should be Western, paid for by the EU, for example. There should be Western processing centres that can process people quickly. Process their claims. This is claims for asylum or refugee status or whatever it might be. Process their claims quickly and then transport them, all free of charge, of course. Transport them to the country of their choice. So anyone from anywhere in the world, not a first world country, but if you're a third world peasant, any peasant from anywhere in the world can just get up. I'm going to go to England, and for some reason, the EU or the white country is obligated to not only allow them, guarantee that they will successfully apply and get citizenship, pay all their accommodation and food and medical care and transport while the processing being done, pay for all the people to do the processing, then move them free of charge to the country of their choice, and then give them all sorts of benefits. And this is an obligation, we're told. It's impossible. It's difficult to even conceive of this level of madness. And listening to these people talking with that strange fantasy type confidence that these people talk in. I mean, it's all talking point cliche type stuff. But so any peasant anywhere in the world, third world peasant anywhere in the world, has the right to just say, I want to go to first world country, and then everything must be laid on for them. They're going to do that because they have a connection. Their fifth cousin, once sort of went on vacation there 10 years ago. So they've got this spurious thing that anyone should be able to go for any reason. I can't believe it. And I can't believe these people are given such a platform for spewing their propaganda and amplified by the media with hardly any pushback. It's insane. You've been with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.